Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Deuteronomy, the 11th chapter. Therefore thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and keep his charge, and his statutes, and his judgments, and his commandments always. And know ye this day, for I speak not with your children, which have not known, and which have not seen the chastisement of the Lord your God, his greatness, his mighty hand, and his stretched out arm. So Moses is saying, I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to your children. I'm talking to you because you have seen, right, as it's going to say, and his miracles and his acts, which he did in the midst of Egypt, unto Pharaoh the king of Egypt, and unto all his land. And what he did unto the army of Egypt, unto their horses, and to their chariots, how he made the water of the Red Sea to overflow them as they pursued after you. That is the closing in of the walls of the Red Sea after we walked on that dry land. He closed that in on them. And how the Lord hath destroyed them unto this day, and what he did unto you in the wilderness until ye came into this place, and what he did unto Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben, how the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their households, and their tents, and all the substance that was in their possession in the midst of all Israel. But your eyes have seen all the great acts of the Lord which he did. So that's why Moses is saying, I'm addressing you, because you witnessed this. You may have been young, but you witnessed this. You knew, you have experience with this. So the greater burden is on you, right? Therefore shall ye keep all the commandments which I command you this day, that ye may be strong, and go in and possess the land, whither ye go to possess it, and that ye may prolong your days in the land, which the Lord sware unto your fathers, to give unto them and to their seed, a land that floweth with milk and honey. Right? So by being obedient, remembering the things the Lord has done for you, and following his commandments, you can go in there, you can take over that land, and you can dwell on it for generations to come, and enjoy the fruit of it. For the land whither thou goest to possess it is not as the land of Egypt, from whence ye came out, where thou sowest thy seed, and waterest it with thy foot, as a garden of herbs. Because remember, Egypt was different, right? Egypt, you had the Nile, they had irrigation systems. So it wasn't totally dependent on rainwater, right? Or like it had to rain because they had that big body of water there they could use. As to where the land that they were going into, right, the land of Canaan, was different. Now, when you look up here, as it says, waterest it with thy foot. When you go into the word foot here, on the one sense, which is pretty much the case for most, if not all places, you would have to like say, walk, right, to go and fetch water and bring it and so on. But let me see if I can find it. Egypt, from whence you came out. There we go, thy foot. And regal, when you actually, it goes into like foot, but when you go into the Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, there is a part in here, right, dealing with Deuteronomy 11 and 10. It says to water with the foot, i.e. to irrigate the land with a machine worked by the feet, such as is now used in Egypt in watering gardens. See Philo de Confusion Linguar, and so on and so forth. So here it's saying that there was a contraption that they would use some form of irrigation system that could be controlled with the feet, probably controlling like the channels or the flow of water from one part to another throughout the land to water the crops. But here the Lord is saying, in a nutshell, the land you're going into is not like Egypt. You don't have those irrigation systems. You don't have that big body of water over there like you did in like the Nile that you did in Egypt. Instead, right? But the land whither ye go to possess it is a land of hills and valleys, and drinketh water of the rain of heaven. So it depends on rain. And that's why famine was such a very powerful punishing tool that the Lord could use, because he could easily trigger that if he just withheld the rain or caused a drought. A land which the Lord thy God careth for. The eyes of the Lord thy God are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of it. So he's constantly watching it because it is dependent, right, on the Lord's providence in order to sustain the people on it. And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season, the first rain and the latter rain. These are two seasons, okay, the former rain and the latter rain. And obviously the rain will be needed, for the raining season will be needed for the planting and so on. And then you would have the harvest. And then in the latter part of the year, you would have another rainfall, okay, or raining season, raining season, that thou mayest gather in thy corn and thy wine and thy oil, meaning you have a good harvest. And I will send grass in thy fields for thy cattle, that thou mayest eat and be full. Because your cows are fed, your cattle is fed, you're good. Take heed to yourselves that your heart be not deceived, and ye turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. And then the Lord's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up the heaven, that there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, lest ye perish quickly from off the good land which the Lord giveth you. So the land is good, so long as you're good. And you stop being good, the Lord can very easily withhold that rain and withhold those crops, and now you're in a bad position. Therefore shall ye lay up these words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. Okay, so keep this in mind always, and be very, very mindful of it, because it's very important. If you transgress it, just know the consequences that await you. And ye shall teach them to your children, speaking of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. So basically, at any occasion you get, you would teach them, right? That's what it means to diligently teach your children. And thou shalt write them upon the doorposts of thine house and upon thy gates, that your days may be multiplied in the days and the days of your children. Why? Because you would follow it. You would teach it to your children from young. They would grow up with it and follow it, and then they would pass it on down. And so long as you all continue that cycle, the blessings of following the ways of the Lord will continue to be bestowed upon you and your children and their children, and so on and so forth, in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give them, as the days of heaven upon the earth. Meaning it's going to go on for continually. For if ye shall diligently keep all these commandments which I command you, to do them, to love the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, and to cleave unto him, then will the Lord drive out all these nations from before you, and ye shall possess greater nations and mightier than yourselves. Every place whereon the soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours, from the wilderness and Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, even unto the utmost sea, which is the Mediterranean, shall be your coast. There shall no man be able to stand before you, so nobody's going to be able to fight back and resist your dominion. For the Lord your God shall lay the fear of you and the dread of you upon all the land that ye shall tread upon, as he hath said unto you. Behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing if ye obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day. Right? And Moses did. Right? He explained all the good things that would happen to you if you obey the Lord. And a curse if you will not obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn aside out of the way which I command you this day, to go after other gods which ye have not known. So you see it. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord thy God hath brought thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, that thou shalt put the blessing upon Mount Gerizim, and the curse upon Mount Ebal. And this was literal, right? When they actually got into the land, they were supposed to do that, which they did. That upon the one mountain, Gerizim, they were to announce and pronounce the curses and acknowledge it, Salakia, the blessings. And on another mountain, Mount Ebal, they were to announce the curses, acknowledge it. So this was known and quote unquote registered in the land. And I believe that's actually in the book of Joshua. See if I can find the verse for you. Let's see. Yeah, it might have been Joshua the 8th chapter. Yeah. And afterward, he read all the words of the law, the blessings and cursings, according to all that is written in the book of the law. Yeah, so I think it's in Joshua the 8th chapter. You can go ahead and read that for some context on that. But I think if it's not 8, it's in the book of Joshua, because that's when they went into the land and did that. Verse 30, and they, Slakia, are they not on the other side Jordan, that is the mountains, by the way where the sun goeth down, which is on the west of Jordan, in the land of the Canaanites, which dwell in the champaign, which is the plains, over against Gilgal, beside the plains of Moreh? For ye shall pass over Jordan to go in to possess the land, which the Lord your God giveth you, and ye shall possess it and dwell therein. And ye shall observe to do all the statutes and judgments which I set before you this day. And that brings us to the end of the book of Deuteronomy, the 11th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.